What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, I've got a new video for you. Today, we are doing some Lair of Darkness testing replays, I guess. I mean, we're not testing live, but I have some replays that are really cool. These are personal replays that I had testing with this deck versus some pretty legit decks, in my opinion. And they're cool decks, and I just wanted to show off kind of what this deck can do in action, not just the profile, because we already saw the profile 3 days ago whenever I put up that I'm not even sure when I'm going to upload this. So whenever I upload that, if you want to see that, definitely go check that out so you know exactly the list that we are looking at replays with today. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first one we're going to do is a more like laid back one. Laid back. It's going to be a trains one, and it's going to give you show you an example of something very particular. I know trains are not like the epitome of the meta at the moment. They're not, perfect by any means at this point in time, but it is one of those things where there are going to be matchups that you're going to run into with this deck where you get an even bigger bonus. That Lair of Darkness is just a straight up floodgate, and you play 8 hard copies of it with 5 draw spells to get you to it. The biggest one is probably Salamangrate. I mean, you get to activate Lair, make everything dark on the field, and every time they want to try and do anything, they can't even get to Sunlight Wolf, Heat Leo, or Pyro Phoenix because they all require specifically fire attribute monsters. Well, everything's dark, so they just can't even establish that. So that's why I like that so much, and it's so strong, and it comes up here as well. In this new build of trains, they need to have, the Infinitrax mainly like to have Earth machines, as well as the Machina cards, Earth machines on field. Well, they're machines, but they're not Earth anymore, so they can't resolve certain effects, and it really cuts off their engine at an opportune time. So really, really cool there, and then we just end up taking advantage of it here. As you can see, we give them 3 tokens because we tribute 3 monsters, and then we just super poly all 3 away for a Trivia Veritum to just get another negate of a summon from a monster from the extra deck. And then here he has a Lightning Storm at some point, which is totally fine for our back. So much of our back row can chain, and then we also have stuff like Artifact Scythe that comes back that he forgot about, or he knew about, but he also just kind of had to fire it at that point. But yeah, eventually we're going to grind this duel out. Slow and steady, they're going to bait out our Lilith and stuff, which happens all the time, but that's why we play back to the front. So if somebody's trying to beat over Lilith, you contribute itself, even if you don't have Lair, to just get it back to the front. Back to the front can revive Lilith on your next turn, and you'll be back to just getting down to business. So we still have board control here. Let's see, I mean, our opponent's just trying to get things done with trains, but they just can't really do anything because they can't get 2 level 10s on the board, and that's just the main problem there. They just couldn't work around Trifid Veritum. And then we're just going to eventually grind it out here, and we are going to just be able to beat in for game because the train cannot, or whatever his name is. What's his name? Anger Knuckle? The Link 2? Just can't really get enough done. So that's the first thing. I just want to show an example of that, but I guess Salamangrates would have been another example. I just didn't really have a good replay versus them. But yeah, like just certain matchups, decks that need certain attributes on the field, you can just wipe them with just having Lair up. It cuts off so much of what their deck wants to do. So really, really strong there. Moving on here, we have a duel versus Eldritch here, and this is going to be another example of how you can really take on Eldritch. One of the ways, this is definitely a tougher matchup because you don't have the best like backer removal in the main deck. Like, I mean, I guess Ballista Squad helps, sort of, and then after that, you kind of just have to grind them out. Luckily, Eldritch, you want to go after their back row, but also, like, you don't have to. It's one of those things where their back row isn't that scary because it's stuff like Conquistadors, Hawkero, maybe the counter trap, and that's it. They don't really play much else. So, like, it's not really, like, too terrifying. But, like, so we have the super polys here, and that's really what's important because we are going to be able to artifact Sanctum on the end phase. We're going to lose our blah, blah, blah. We're going to lose our Lair. And one of the things that's really tough in this matchup also specifically is that Eldritch with Conquistador, they know that if they can just get into 3 Conquistadors, they're just going to like pop all 3 of your field spells. They can just save Conquistador for your field spell every time, or they can use their Eldritch's hand effect to get rid of your field spell. And if they out all 3, it's kind of the same thing versus them. If you out all 3 Golden Lord, they're going to be in a pickle. Well, if they out all 3 of your Lair, you're also going to be in a pickle. So it's kind of that thing there. We do have the Super Poly. So we're going to Super Poly twice, and that's how we eventually win this game. Super Poly once, get the Demaglio. He has a Sanguine, but we have a Trap Trick, so we're going to be able to Ballista Squad the Golden Lord that they bring out, and then we're just going to beat in for game. Exactly. So Super Poly also very, very good, because even if they have the Counter Trap, even if they have the Conquistador, Hakero, you are going to be able to turn them off by being able to chain your Super Poly and just, with the spell speed 4, get that Golden Lord off the motherfucking field. Very important. So I will say the matchup is pretty tough overall, I think. Unless you have like a really solid setup, like it's going to be tough for that matchup. But still, you can get it done. Specifically with Super Poly. Super Poly is very, very clean in the deck. So just keep that in mind. And then we have one more duel here versus Adamancipator. This is another very good one. Let's swap these around. So we can see we're going to Ash the Onomatopoeia. He still has a good hand after that, but you know, he's not going to be able to go full combo. He's just going to do the best that he can. Here, he gets a Gigas off the top. He's going to be specialing some monsters, but he's not going to be able to go too crazy far with it, fortunately for us. So, and do we see a whiff? Wasn't this a whiff? No, it wasn't a whiff. That's right. Found a researcher. I'm trying to remember exactly how this duel went, but he's going to end on like a mediocre board, nothing too crazy. He's going to end up just making a Dragite after whiffing on the Analyzer. He's going to end on 2 negates, but we're going to fire off the Extravagance, which he chooses not to negate, but we draw the Sphere Mode, and we're just going to Sphere Mode him. And that's probably just going to like be it, essentially. We don't even need to actively do anything. You can keep the Sphere Mode. If he can't link it off the field, we're going to get that card back. And we have a Ballista Squad and an Impermanent, so that looks fairly likely. Like he goes Dragite, he's going to attempt to get the draw. We're going to tribute both of those so he doesn't end up keeping a monster on field. We're going to get the Sphere Mode back for like tribute fodder so that we can get the Diabolos and the Arima out on board. And we're just giving him the business, man. It's just done at that point. I mean, he doesn't really have much to do. We're going to get 2 tokens. He's got a Lancian, he's going to draw for turn, and that's just going to be the end of the duel there. So yeah, like this deck, this was going second. I mean, if they open an okay hand and you have 1 Ash, 1 Impermanence, that can definitely force them into a mediocre board state. This is definitely one thing I will say. This was post-siding. 100% you have to side Sphere Mode in this deck. It's so insanely good versus combo decks because it also has the interaction that with Lair of Darkness, if you're able to activate Lair and your opponent decides not to just negate it or destroy it preemptively, you can just Sphere Mode your opponent, and technically 3 monsters were tributed on your turn, so you will just get 3 tokens on the end phase, which is actually awesome because it just gets you all this extra wall and also tribute fodder. So if you do have Ballista Squad set, you do have other stuff you know, in hand that could rely on that, or just next turn you can use them as potential link fodder to make potential Verte Anaconda plays, Beat Cop from the Underworld plays, whatever you need, you have access to it. So that's really nice, but definitely have to side this in. And if you're playing a hard going second Lair deck, I wouldn't even like brag on you for playing 3 of this in the main, honestly, because it's just so good. The synergy with Lair is so fire with this card, and it's just such a blowout card versus like backrow decks, or not backrow decks, combo decks. But yeah, those are our 3 replays. I know they were all 3 wins. Definitely, I think the matchup versus Adamancipator is actually not that bad. The stuff they negate is like not the biggest stuff you care about, if that makes sense. Like if you can get a Lair on field, you can put work in. If you can get a Lair on field, it opens up Super Poly, it opens up Arima and Lilith to then be able to with like the tribute as cost effect, be able to remove something before they even have a chance to negate. So if they have a Borreload Savage or a Dragite, you can tribute those as cost, then their chance to negate opens up. So if you tribute one and it was their only one that actually negates like monster effects, they wouldn't be able to negate from there, and it would put them in a really tough spot. So that plus like the fact that we play 8 copies of Lair in the main, we open up 2 all the time, and you'll see like all the time you could activate Lair, they go for Dragite to negate, and then you activate another Lair and they're literally just like, ugh, do I use Boral Savage here? Because if I do, if he has one other card that's like a blowout card, I just like lose. And so they might not even fire off the Boral Savage in that instance. Talking about Adamancipator specifically here, obviously. So it can be tough for them and put them in an awkward spot. But yeah, the deck's really solid. You can literally beat any deck. Like Eldritch is probably your worst, absolute worst matchup. And you saw we can beat them. You can beat any deck with this deck. I'm not saying you're going to consistently do it, but you definitely can. So those are my replays for today, guys. Definitely let me know what you think about Lair of Darkness at this point in time. I don't know. Give me any extra thoughts, input on anything. Maybe you think my hair looks stupid. I certainly do. Ugh, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh! Replay videos in the future, and I will see you then. Peace.